Good morning. Happy Thursday. Thursday here. I'm Mandy Brenham, host of the show, Full-Time Investor. Thanks for being here today. Coming to you with some more great high-level information about what got me to becoming a full-time investor. It's something that lots of people think about and talk about. Maybe they're not sure how they're ever going to get there, if they ever want to get there. But you know what? This show's for you. If you want to hear what it's taken me to be able to get to where I am, it's something that you strive to be able to do, or if it's just something you want to be able to ask yourself, how can you have real estate as part of a diversified investment portfolio? How can you do some of this yourself? How can you have better returns? How can you create some financial stability for yourself in the future? So this is a great show for you, hosted by myself in the background there. Couldn't do this with anyone else except my hubby, Larry Brenham. So Larry and I started out back in 2007. The automotive industry took a dive, and we were at the top of our game. We had a beautiful house. We had 2 young children. Larry was working overtime. He was making lots of money, and we thought we were living the dream. Hey, guys. And so the automotive crash hit, and his company went under, and he went no overtime. So we're like, we can live with no overtime, no problem. And then they said, oh, we're going to do a shared work week. And so your hours are going down. And we were like, whoa, like all of a sudden what we perceived as solid foundation was a foundation that we hadn't built. We did not build it. And so we recognized that we wanted to take control of our financial future. If it was going to be a crash, it was because we had put ourselves in that way. So we bought our first duplex. And we searched and searched and searched and searched and searched. And as much as there could have been property after property that I would have bought, I recognized that Larry had some expectations or he had some specific things that he was looking for in an asset. He needed to be able to drive by it. So he needed to know that if it needed work, that he could drive by and be like, there's a house, I'm watching you, I'm checking on you. He needed to know that it was not going to cost us anything out of our family budget. So it needed to cover itself. And it needed to not be in need of a ton of repair. So it needed to be turnkey. It needed to have tenants in place. It needed to be, up to date, not needing a lot of work. And he needed to be able to drive by it. And obviously, it needed to be within our financial within our financial reach. So in 2007, we bought a duplex. And we still own it this day. And it met all those criteria. And we got a high, I think it was like 7%, 8%. And I know that, in my parents' generation and other people in that generation, they're like, come on, Mandy, I was at 18 or 20 or higher interest rates. But for us, 8% was a big deal. So we got a second mortgage on our first house, on the house that we lived in. We borrowed that second mortgage when we bought our 222 Second Street. And it's a tongue twister. That's a tongue twister, that one. So you bought 222 Second Street. Flash forward 7 years later. And so it's 2014. We had one other rental property that we had acquired when we moved out of our family home. And we decided to keep that family home as a rental. And we put a beautiful family in there. And we didn't need to do much work to it because it was a house that we had lived in. And so they just took over ownership, renting of this house, but we maintained that house as a second rental within our property, within our portfolio, and we moved on to our next house. We then had bought a third property, and at that time, it started to get hard. Okay, so you can kind of tell. 2 was like, oh, we're doing this, we're great, okay, and the third one, the mortgage broker was more difficult. The lender wanted more things. We needed to start to cash RSPs and stuff like that you were like, we didn't have to do any of this before. But as you start to grow, the banks either go, wow, they're not doing this part-time anymore. They're not new at this. They're actually starting to get really knowledgeable. And we're going to ask a few more things. So it was that third purchase that got us thinking there has to be a better way than this. There has to be people out there. And so that's one of the things. Everyone starts someplace. but you also acknowledge along the way when you say, who else are doing what I want to do? Because I need to start to ask them how they continue to grow. And so we started to seek out some mentors within this industry. And a good friend of mine, Tara Hunt, shout out to Tara, she called me up one day and she's like, you're not going to believe this. There's this ad on TV. We need to go to this event. So Larry and I, in 2014, refinanced our first duplex, right? 222 2nd Street that we bought in 2007. And we had this check in our hands. We had a check, $36,000. Wow. Like, it was one of the biggest amounts of money that we had, that we didn't have to work 40 hours for, but it really had taken us 7 years of passive income and managing the tenants and doing some stuff monthly. But we had this check for $36,000 and I liked it. I liked that check. But all I said was, if this is to supplement my retirement and Larry's retirement and the kids' education and the kids' weddings, we're going to need more than this property right here. And so we sought out some education. We sought out a coaching group. We joined that coaching group at the end of 2014. And really, when people ask me when my investing journey started, it is from that point right there, 2014. Okay, so we had 3 properties coming into our coaching. And in 2014, we bought another property, did a huge flip on it, a really quick turnover, made $50,000 in 20 days, had a beautiful family move into that unit. And then we were like, let's do it again. So we found another property, did it again. By the end of 2015, we had bought 3 properties by the end of 2015 and continued on. So momentum starts to get going. You start to find, I don't want to say loopholes because there's no loopholes here, but you start to realize which lenders are investor focused, which agents are investor focused. So after we bought one of our properties, the agent that I was using at the time was, I called him up and I said, hey, there's another property for sale. And he's like, you just bought one. Why do you need another one? And I thought, okay, I think I have outgrown you very nicely, beautifully. Thank you so much for the growth that I've had with you. And then I found somebody else who was super investor focused. Same thing with the mortgage lender, that lender that kind of took us for a loop. And I said, there has to be a better way. I sat down and I had an interview with somebody, and I kind of said, look, this is where I am. This is where I want to go. Are you going to be able to take me with mortgages all the way to where I am? Same thing with bookkeepers and accountants. You might be able to do your own taxes when it's just you and one property, you, your husband's income, and 2 properties, however it needs to be. Just acknowledge the growth that you're having and be able to say, as you continue to grow, if you want to grow further, then you have to, what do I need to give up so that I can keep growing to the next level? And that's really what we found. We recognized what was holding us back, what was causing us noise. We always say that. I say that to my property manager, Curtis, all the time. What's causing you noise right now? And we always focus on that to be able to say, if we didn't have this noise, how much more would be clearer in your life? And how can we, get over this little obstacle, this little problem, this little pain right now, this little stone in your shoe to be able to go on to the next one. But some people get stuck and they're just like, oh, there's a stone in my shoe. And so they stop. I always say, how can we take that little stone, get rid of it, and keep going? And that's really what we did in our investing journey. I wrote down, during this journey, as I continued to grow, I was a bit of an ask hole, okay? I asked a lot of questions, and you kind of are like, go back to your, I don't know, I want to say maybe 3 to 6 year old child who just asks you so many questions. And it's because they have a database in their mind, and they just have so many questions that they need to have answered so that they can know how to navigate the rest of their journey. And so that's where I was. I asked so many questions, picked up the phone, called so many different real estate agents in different cities and asked them why is Windsor a great place? Do you feel is a great place to invest? Tell me about North Bay. Tell me about the rental market up there. And so I called all these people and I gathered all this information. And at that time, I also started to go to some events. Again, I surrounded myself with people who had what I wanted to have. Don't sit at home and say, oh, no, I don't even want to, I don't, you know what, you know me, that's not me. If you want to have something different, you have to do something different to get something different, right? That's the whole Einstein thing. You can't continue to do the same thing and get different results. You have to be able to change your behaviors. And so we very much changed our behaviors. We started to go to events. We started to talk to people who had portfolios. How did you do it? Might have been long ago in the past, but how are they managing them? What is their lifestyle like? Who are some of the people on their power team? So we really asked, I really did start to ask so many questions that people around me, you know what, but it wasn't the people around me, because they weren't the ones that I sought for the answers. I was seeking other people for the answers. So just please acknowledge that, to be able to say that if the quality of your life is based on the quality of the questions that you ask, start asking some really high level questions and you'll get some better answers. Okay. And start seeking out others that do what you do or have what you have, because that's how you're going to change your outcome. So as we continued on in this process, there is another saying that says, it's Jim Rohn. I listened to him. I learned from him the audio recordings. If you hadn't heard me speak of him, it's maybe you haven't heard me enough, but work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Whoa, what does that mean? I'm going to break it down. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Okay. So if you, at the time I was in a dental office. Okay. And I would go every day that I worked to the dental office and I would do dental office things. And at the time when I was working at the dental office, I was not doing any Mandy growth. I was not working on myself outside of work, because people think they go to work and that's where the work is done. Well, so what this statement is you should be working on yourself as the number one asset in your life. The number one asset in your portfolio is you, right? And I just had a conversation with Ben last night on our drive down to another real estate investing event, and he said the same thing. So always be making sure that you are the asset that's going to be able to generate the highest returns. So make sure you're working on that asset. You're protecting it. You're teaching it. You're carving it into the mold that you want it to be. So work harder on yourself than you do on your job. And so as we joined this coaching group, continue to go to real estate investing groups, reading books about ourselves, having a university on wheels with CDs in our car at all times. It starts to reprogram your mind. It absolutely does. I'm driving around a city now and I am recognizing houses for sale, properties for sale. I'm recognizing people who are driving nice cars and I'm wondering, what do they do to be able to have the wealth that they have? And so, So what I really wanted to share with you today is that everybody starts where they start. We don't just jump into this game and miraculously show up. Everybody has a story to be able to get to where they are. So today's episode, I really wanted to share with you that Larry and I started out as two people looking to create financial security for ourselves, with us as the drivers of this bus. That's what it was. So if there's a market crash right now, so let's just say the stock market goes down, you know what? We have some stuff in the market. We might lose a little bit there, but everything's balanced out. Okay. And we've chosen that our investments are where they are. Okay. We've chosen that they are invested in stocks, which stocks they're in. We've chosen that things are invested in real estate. We've chosen some companies that we've invested in. We've chosen those things. So will be responsible for the outcome of our finances. Let's say that the real estate market takes a dive. This is where the education kind of comes in, and you want to be able to balance out that risk. I'm not sitting here going, oh my gosh, is the bubble going to burst? You know what? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about that elephant in the room. Yeah, okay, so the bubble's going to burst and prices are going to go down. Guess what? Prices going down doesn't affect me unless I'm putting a for sale sign on the front of the lawn and selling my asset. Okay, so as you transition from part-time investor to full-time investor, you also have to close the gap of your nervousness, of any questions and doubt and risk, and you have to be able to come up with options of what you would do in changes of the market. It's just people who are very rigid that think it's either black or white. I either own an asset or I sell an asset, or it's either up or down, and they don't see that there is some give and take and some ups and downs that you have to kind of go with to be able to continue to be agile in a changing market. So if a real estate market goes down, what's the worst thing that could happen? The worst thing that could happen. The value of your house goes down. Does that really matter to you? No, you're not selling. Okay. What is something else that could happen when real estate takes a turn? You're an investor. You have tenants in your property. So the tenants could lose their job. Okay. So if the tenants lose their job, maybe they move out of the property and now you have a vacant property. Okay, so that could be a situation that you need to deal with. How can you get that property filled again? Can you are there going to be more people losing their house because they can't afford the changes because the market has gone down? You're going to have a lineup of renters ready to rent your house. You're actually going to have supply, and the demand is higher than the supply. So you're going to have a product that a lot of people want to that are going to want to rent. So as you continue to grow, bridge that gap of any kind of nervousness or questions or what if scenarios. As much as Donald Trump is Donald Trump, he said something one time that really stuck to me is any project that he goes into, he asks his advisors, what are all the things that could go right with this project? Okay, and he sits there and they go over all the things that could go right. And then he says, what are all the things that could go wrong with this project as well? And so he and his advisors go over every worst case scenario of things that could go wrong with a said project that he's going to be working on. And so he needs to do that. And I want you to do that. I want you to acknowledge that, yeah, there's an upside to real estate. There's also a potential downside. So you're not one-sided in this world. You're balanced to be able to say, if it goes up, I'm okay. If it goes down, I'm okay. I still feel that this is a balanced asset that can be part of my portfolio, and away we go from there. So I'm going to leave it at that today to be able to say that everybody starts someplace. Please acknowledge and thank you for being in the spot that you're in the journey where you are. If you're at all interested in investing, by all means, there's so much information out there. Please don't get overwhelmed with the information. I'm happy to be able to guide you into some good directions as to which lane to start out with, depending on where you are. Okay. So Mandy Brenham, full-time investor, known as the joint venture queen. I will see you next week, the same time, same place, right here, full-time investor. Thanks for watching, guys.